Wait, you went to the chiropractor, got a massage, and then slept on a plane funny, and now you
Yeah.
don't feel good?
So it's like it just undid all the good.
This is Auto Collabs.
That's 3 reasons why I don't feel bad for you. Number 1, you got a massage. Number 2, you went to the chiropractor, and number 3, you were able to sleep on a
I
plane.
didn't get the massage, okay?
Oh,
Don't
all
put me
this
on the
money is
massage.
so
It was
tough
just
to
the
deal with.
chiropractor.
Look at all this money I have. I
No,
feel
no,
bad.
stop. Get out of here.
I wish
You
I could
just want to
sleep on a
take that one
plane.
again and restart it?
Why?
I thought we were starting.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if like the picking
Can
on
we
him for all the
still
money
keep
was
all
like
of this?
okay.
Yeah, we should.
I had somewhere. I was
Okay,
going
you got
know.
there.
somewhere to go.
I
I will see myself out.
I felt like that was a good intro.
I thought
Let's
that was a
keep it.
great intro.
Let's keep the intro. Michael Cyril's turned his hat backwards now.
Yeah, I didn't like the glare, the shadow over my glasses. It's
I
already
know.
back.
It's reflecting off your Invisalign.
Yeah, no, those are out. Took my teeth out. I took my teeth out for recording.
We got chiropractors and Invisalign and the whole night. It's getting bad around here, guys.
I feel like we're getting to the point now in our media career where we may need to start thinking seriously about how white we can get our teeth.
no.
They're
Please
just
don't
big
do it.
chiclets.
Well, because the thing is, if one of us just decides to do it, the other ones are going to have to do it.
It's gonna have to happen. Cirillo's getting white teeth. I'm calling it first. That's happening.
Probably.
He's gonna start a
Great.
fit check Instagram. It's gonna be great.
If I come in and I start sounding a little bit drunk on these calls, you'll know I got lazy and just started leaving my Invisalign in, though. I'll be like,
Yeah.
I'll start talking like Mike Tyson.
All of a sudden, we check our reviews on Apple and Spotify, and they're like, "Who are these fools talking about their geriatrics?" It's unbelievable.
That would be us.
We need a
would be
Kyle
us.
level segue. Speaking of geriatrics.
No, speaking of reviews,
Oh,
yeah,
There
reviews.
you go.
Come
That's not
on.
old at
Kyle
all.
mounts your segue. I can't do it.
unbelievable. We're hanging out with Matt Murray Widewail today. If you don't know, he created this crazy reviews platform that has grown like wild. He's got cool insights, and he's just one of the like regular guys of automotive. I've
can't wait to
always
meet him.
enjoyed hanging out with him. He's smart too, you know. So
He was also there for the heyday of dealer.com's like
Dealer.com.
massive
you're right.
rocket ship growth. So
Yeah.
I hope we get to talk to him a little bit about that.
Well,
Let's ask
hey,
him.
we hope you enjoy this conversation with Matt Murray. All right, we were talking before the show. This show is solely going to be about industry partner merch. If you came here for anything else, you've got the wrong idea.
And why Michael's not wearing his hat.
Done messed up, AA Ron. Oh no.
Oh, wrong
See,
one.
I had to go with the hat thing. Unbelievable. We got Matt Murray with Widewail here hanging out. We're going to be nerding out over some data today, I think. Matt, thanks for joining us on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
So I think what was it, a little over a year ago, you guys decided to start, I talked to so many companies in auto, and it's like, do you understand the data that you're sitting on? It's insane. It's actually ridiculous how many companies have such rich data that like, if more people knew about it, we might be able to like figure more stuff out. So it didn't live in a bucket. How did it come where you were like, hey, we're just going to start sharing some of this like macro data that we have? Who had the grand idea?
Jeez, that's a good one. So if you go back to 2018 when we started collecting reviews, we wanted to be able to do this to make sense of what is really super unstructured data. And then our director of marketing, Jake, started in 19, and he had one goal. I said, Jake, we got to look bigger than we are. We're a brand new company, right?
We all
And
know how that feels.
yeah,
Baby.
and he goes, well, where's our first party data? If we're going to be, a little bit resource constrained, in other words, we don't have millions of dollars. We need to tell the industry about itself so that people are interested in what we do. And around that exact same time, I think it was through the Friend Network, we got connected with a PhD at Princeton who was doing her capstone project. Excuse me. And she's like, I just need a whole bunch of data. I'm going to do some topic and sentiment analysis with some legacy technology. And we shipped her 10,000 reviews, which at the time for us was enormous. Like we were all really excited. 10,000 reviews felt
Right.
big. And we gave her one question: why do people leave negative reviews for car dealerships? And what's interesting to me
Huh.
is her answer with 10,000 reviews is still found in this study of 8 million reviews.
Ah,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
wait, okay, that's a really interesting question, though. It's not like why are where are dealers failing? It's why do people that's actually like I've never heard that question asked in that way. Paul, Michael, have you ever heard that question asked in that way?
nope. But it does seem like the root question
Right.
to answer.
Yeah,
When you
Well,
why
I can
do
only
they
back
leave
imagine.
into
bad
just about
Yeah.
reviews?
everything else, right? It's going to give you a high level.
You could
High
come
level.
to a different conclusion than I think maybe you would normally come if you asked that question.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, we're good. We're just now. You're going to tell us the answer, but I
Yeah.
think what you would think is that you would find some broad, overarching sentiment that spans in person, online, like all the experiences wrapped into one that you can actually back into. But what did they say?
Yeah. I mean, our answer is really simple, and you'll find folks that we all know talking about this even without wide whale data, but it's really our people. Like plain and simple.
Mm.
People drive communication. People are the ones that are helpful and professional and knowledgeable for the customer. And what the data, oftentimes I end up with this perspective of like, what technology would change the experience? Because if I listen to the customer, it's not about technology at
Hmm.
all. They just talk about people. They don't talk about the AI bot on your website. They don't talk about your lead capture form or how long it was. They don't talk about the paid search ad that they clicked. It's, my sales rep, my service advisor, or, the staff in finance.
Well, we go around. We've been talking about this a while, but you're like shedding a different light on it that I'm super interested in. And I want to dig in more and Paul and I say this. So we do these like in the dirt type man on the street interviews. And we'll go to like downtown Nashville, downtown Philly, downtown wherever. And we typically have a line of questioning around like when was the last time you bought a car, all this type of stuff. Would you like EVs, not? And it's just fun. But we always have this question where it's like, what do you think about car dealers? And
Mm.
people start with like, I don't know, car dealers, meh, right? And then immediately we go, well, how about the last time you bought a car? And the first, I'm telling you, I at some point we're gonna have Nathan. He's off screen. We're gonna go back, and every single one starts with something. Well, I really like my salesperson. Like that's the first. It's not
It's
like,
amazing.
oh, I showed the car to everybody, and I got digital retailing, and you wouldn't believe the deal I got. It was like
Yeah, we
they
literally
always
say
go
we
right
have
at it.
never heard anyone say something bad about a salesperson.
It's unbelievable.
Only really good things.
You know what's really interesting on that point, Paul? The review data, if you just look at positive reviews and compare them to negative, if it's positive, the customer will call out the individual. They'll use the name. Paul was great. If it's negative, it's the staff or the service department, or they don't like
Whoa.
to use a person's name,
Nah.
which is, a little bit of psychology maybe, but it's,
I was going to say, do you think that's because they're secretly afraid of confrontation, so they don't want to call out the individual?
Yeah.
So the whole organization takes the hit from one turd burglar ruining the experience for the
Say
customer.
yeah. I mean,
Unbelievable.
look, we sort of forget, at least I do, maybe you guys don't, but that car dealership on Main Street, USA is the center of the community, right? It's the business maybe with the most revenue in some cases. It's the biggest, 80 to
Often.
250 people.
Yeah.
And my kids go to school with them, and we're on the same soccer teams, and like it's part of the fabric of the community. So maybe being, confrontationally averse or adverse to confrontation, it totally makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like that. If I leave a Google review for a business, I don't leave a ton. I think I'm going to save that for my retirement. I'm just going to be a professional Google reviewer because it is really fun, especially retail, because we talk about retail. But if I ever leave a good review, it typically names somebody. And if I leave a bad review, it will never name somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know
You
what
don't
that
want to flame them.
No.
I'm like, my mind is blown because I've said that. See, this is getting such to the heart of what I really believe, but it's like the data's proving it out. Is I keep telling people that you're, everybody wants to put out like value propositions of like, we come service to you, you can buy a car online, whatever these like what I would call like fleeting value propositions are. And I keep saying the single greatest value proposition of the franchise retail automotive industry is its people.
Mm.
And you're just saying like the data proves that quite clearly. Like when people have a great experience, they note that people created that great experience.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent my entire career in automotive digital marketing tech. And while this isn't a popular point of view, I think sometimes as a dealership, you buy technology to make yourself more efficient, right? To drive a better bottom line. And sometimes that's a real short-term perspective, right? Because ultimately we got to build trust with this community so they keep coming back. So my kids say, yeah, I work with Heritage Ford,
Mhm.
right? And so, that short-term thinking, we've seen it over and over again. I'm going to buy a bunch of digital retailing tools and I'm going to AI all the things because I want a better bottom line. That's not necessarily a great long-term strategy.
Well, let
It-
me
it-
ask you a question. Now that we're 8 minutes into this podcast, um, because we got us excited. Um, how did you get into automotive? I don't know the answer to this question, but it's one that I always want to know the answer to.
Yeah, I was in the Navy. I left college about halfway, joined the Navy just to go. I needed to do something. And so I did that from 2000 to 2006. Came out of the Navy, moved to Manhattan because when you're 26, that's what you do.
Joined the
Turns
Navy,
out,
then moved there.
Sure.
yeah, turns out that wasn't a good
A lot
decision.
different than the Navy, I bet.
Yeah. So I ended up back home with my folks and found dealer.com shortly after moving back home and came in to just learn the industry, learn technology, and lived through the heyday there. It was an unbelievable 10 years from 2007 to 17, and I've never left. Like, why would you leave auto?
We can agree, we can relate to that.
Facts. There you
Michael,
go.
Yeah.
you were going to ask something before.
no, no, that ship has sailed. No pun
That ship is
intended.
sailed.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
Oh, got him with the ship has sailed. Okay. So before we get to the report, because there's some interesting insights that I want people to draw out, I have to get this. We found out something, we do these like we're professional podcasters. I don't know if anyone knew that or not. But
Told me.
but we found out that the name Wide Whale wasn't because like, everyone's gonna widely wail their stories. Like there's another reason for that. Give us the background on that.
I'll try to make it quick.
Uh,
When I was in the Navy, I picked up a guitar and just fell in love with the acoustic guitar. Decided I was going to start a music production company. I needed a name for it. So Wide Whale was initially Wide Whale, like the corduroy, WALE, right? And then,
mhm.
believe it or not, didn't start a music production company. Years later, as dealer.com was growing, I was thinking, you know what? You don't need $1 billion company. You need 20, $50 million companies. And what would the holding company be? So Wide Whale came back for me then. Then it became my Xbox handle. So every time I played Xbox with my son, I was Wide Whale. And when we started this business, my wife and I are trying to figure out, well, what do we name it? And I'm over at GoDaddy, like trying different URLs on. And the closest we got was repmon, REPMON.com. And obviously that was we couldn't go that way.
Rep
So,
Mon?
I'm so glad the way you said that. He's like, obviously that was wrong.
yeah, that was just a big nope. So Wide Whale came back for me, and to be frank, like at in the very early stages, I thought someday we might rebrand. Right, every large, if you look at
Yeah.
the story of almost every business, they rebrand at some point. But in that first year and a half, we were on the phone calling dealers, and we would have to spell our name because they'd be like, "White Wall, what are you? You're the White Whale. Who are
Trust me,
you?"
with a name like ASOTU, we spend a lot of time. That's why I just put it on my hat so I can be like, breathe
Just right
frame.
here, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's turned out to be a really great choice from a branding perspective.
Yeah, that's
Fantastic.
strong. That's awesome. So,
So
all right, let's get into the study because you've kind of looked over the last year worth of data. You've said, okay, what are we learning from this year, and what does that mean about what we're heading? I'd like to maybe like tackle a few of those notes specifically from this year. I think let's let's start with, because we talked about people. Where where are we seeing trends go when it pertains to like people talking, consumers talking about the people that they're dealing with?
Yeah. So the data this year is the beginning of 2023 through Q3 of 2024. Every Google review for every new car dealer in the U.S. And
Just a couple
we
Dutry. Got it.
yeah, it was 8.1 something million. And so we're presenting some year-over-year trends, which is great. Specific topics we can now see over that 7 quarters. The headline this year for sure is negativity around staff interactions is up 20%, driven primarily by sales interactions. Sales
Hmm.
saw a 27% jump in negativity. But even as we look, so service saw a 15% jump. And if we break luxury and non luxury dealers, they all saw an increase in negativity. It's pretty much across the board. Within that, of course, there are specific interactions. So when somebody talks about staff, they might also be talking about how knowledgeable that person was or how professional or helpful they were. And in almost every case, we saw a growth in negativity in those traits as well. Um, so that's a
Would
challenge. Yeah.
would the let me ask you this, were the number of reviews up or down? Like,
Reviews generally, I mean, every year the average dealership receives more reviews than the
so it's on the
previous.
increase, right?
Yeah, increase across the board, but as a percentage, the mention of negativity around staff is up 20%.
Well,
Communication is
what
up
is your feeling on
18%.
why that is? I mean, we can all,
Yeah.
yes, but do you know why, or do you have an idea why?
Yeah, I have a good feeling, and most of it centers around the fact that our industry's been through a lot the last 4 years, right? So if you bought a car in 2021, let's say you bought a car at MSRP or higher, and there really were no incentives to speak of, you just bought the car. And now OEMs are back looking for market share. Supply is up. We need to move metal. Incentives are flying. Negotiation is back big time, right? Like customers are after a deal.
Yep.
And at the same time, I mean, look, 1 out of 5 vehicles sold in the US today is a non-ICE vehicle. So our salespeople now have to represent a plug-in hybrid, a hybrid, an ICE, all the incentives and product knowledge associated with all those platforms. And I think it's showing up a little bit as, a ton of complexity and maybe a lack of training.
Do you think
Mm.
that, as you're talking about like the inventory shortage conditions, I think about people paying over MSRP, you know, say 2 to 3 years leading up to when we got inventory back. You think a part of those sales conversations are now people realizing that they are underwater in their trade? I know it's kind of early for that, but it's happening, right? That's going to
Yeah.
put a damper on it quick when you're like, hey, great.
Yeah.
You need to figure out where to put this 7 grand of negative equity in this deal.
I
It's
think that'll
tough.
be that'll be a long tail of negativity
Yeah.
too, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the average car on the road is now 12.6 years.
Yeah.
Years.
It's
So
actually, it just went up. It literally
yeah,
just went up this morning. Well, I don't know if it just went up this morning, but we just saw something that it just went up.
This was like
again,
literally the most unpopular opinion during that swell, unexplainable was, okay, what's the long-term impact of this? You're going to have customers who will resent you for a very long time
Yeah.
because everyone knows and nobody is apologizing for it that you're taking advantage of everybody, and consumers will not soon forget how much of that negative, like, do you think there's got to be a portion of that negative review increase of people that are like, I'm buying the car anyways, but boy, I'm just so unhappy doing it because I know you screwed me over 3 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah. I mean, everybody wants a deal,
Yeah.
right? And
Always.
I think it's hard to feel like you're getting a deal unless you're the EV customer right now who is sharing less negativity around the cost of the vehicle or available deals. It seems like the EV segment has some positivity there, but the vast majority of customers are in search of a deal that either they haven't found, or to your point, they're having a hard time structuring it, or they're being pressured in the finance office. And I just think that a lot of this can be tied right back to the complexity of the moment, right? The industry has
Yeah.
changed so quickly.
Well, and it just enhances the need for heightened communication, increased training, right? It's like we have to double down on those things, because if the front line, if the salesperson, if the service advisor is the person that like a consumer is waiting on to have the right information with the right emotional intelligence, with the right empathy in the moment, understanding the complexity, squaring that with the reality, like that's the person that's going to be in the weeds with these consumers. So if like what you're saying earlier is if people have a great experience, it's because of the person. That we have to double down on ensuring that the path to that is strong, because the risk is actually so much higher. It's a risky situation to send someone untrained into when the complexity is so great, right?
Yeah. And sales gets exposed, right? Because the customer gets to ask questions live right there on the
Right.
showroom floor, and they're expected to know. Service has a little bit of a different feel. If I'm just getting my oil changed, my tires rotated, I kind of know what that looks and feels like. I know about what it's going to
Yeah,
cost.
it's
With a
familiar.
vehicle, yeah, and then even so, like let's say there's a noise, right? Something's wrong with my car, and I bring it in. Service isn't expected to know what's going on. They say, "Okay, Mr. Murray, I'll take your vehicle back there. We'll be in touch."
True.
That's a nice buffer for them.
Big time.
So
Right.
Well, you mentioned EVs. Is there some data specifically around EV purchasing that you can share?
yeah, so the beauty of this data is we can take all of these reviews and set some benchmarks across all interactions, and then we can start breaking apart the cohorts. So how does sales do versus service, luxury, non-luxury? When we look at EV specific interactions compared to ICE, what we see is a ton of negativity for the EV customer around knowledge and helpfulness. So greater than 70% increase in negativity year over year for EV customers from the sales staff, right?
Wow.
Really?
Right. Right.
They're just saying, like,
So,
I went there and they didn't know anything.
yeah, I mean, it plays out and like, hey, I want this trim level EV. What's the range? I don't
And they
know.
go, let
Well,
me
the data is a lot more complex too of what you need to know for sure.
Right.
Because you just mentioned one, right? This trim level has a different mileage range. It's no longer just like, oh yeah, all the Equinoxes get 32 miles to the gallon average city and highway because they all have the same
Yeah.
engine and transmission in them. It's like, nope, we gave this one a little bit more and this one a little bit less.
All-wheel drive, this is two-wheel drive, totally changes fuel efficient. Like,
And by the way,
Totally.
you will never see that you'll never see that mileage because of the way you drive that thing.
yeah, right.
Right. I
I
mean,
thought it
it's a
was
complex
interesting.
problem.
I don't think we saw this in 23, but the reduction in negativity around maintenance for the EV customer, super
Mm.
interesting. So
Hmm.
I think the consumer is starting to figure out that that vehicle, that platform is a little easier to maintain, at least in the moment, right? I'm not worried about the oil change, for instance. So less negativity there. And I said deals earlier, but there's still, state level incentives out there. So folks are feeling like they're getting a deal, and there's a ton more competition. So maybe prices, I can
Yeah,
get into an EV for much less than I could 3 years ago. That feels
sure.
better.
In a lot of cases, it's the cheapest option. We were just talking about the Colorado incentive of $12,500 total between state and federal. You just be able to put 12.5 down on a car. And so as a result, Colorado's EV adoption has 1 out of every 4 cars sold in Colorado last year was an EV. It's crazy.
It's
Wow.
wild.
25%. It's nuts.
Insane.
Was it
Yeah.
25 or was it 20? It was 24.
36.
No. No, it's like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5. So I guess when people are buying in those numbers, it makes sense that negativity goes down, around price
Yeah,
and cost, right? I mean,
around price.
especially if you're leasing, holy crap. At least some of these
Yeah.
cars you can for like $299 a month. It's like a $60,000 vehicle.
Yeah. Hey,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
One related stat there. Uh, Negative sentiment around cost in service broadly is up. So we were just talking about how old vehicles are.
Mm-hmm.
Our
Mm,
customer is now running into the things they never had to pay for before, right? So that
right.
we looked at, so that S&P tells us 12.6 is the average age of a vehicle. So then we looked at review data to see if we could understand, what's going on. What are people talking about in service? The mention of brakes is up over 30%, transmission is up over 30%, engine is up over 30%. And in every case, it's $1,300, it's $5,000, it's $10,000 for an engine. Like, these are things the average consumer hasn't had to deal with, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
we're not out in front of it, helping them understand what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, at 12 years on average, right? Like you're 150, 200,000 miles on that thing. You're going to get into replacing things.
Yeah, what's a transmission cost? I mean,
And
I want to ask you this. I mean, as we kind of wind this down, you had mentioned earlier training. Now, you just listening to you now, there's kind of a training track in here. I love the paradigm shift that I've been writing notes on here, which is so many dealers in our industry are so focused on competition, right? That like, what's my competitor doing? They go to their 20 group and they bring up their digital composites and the blah, 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 blah. Not realizing that the number one thing they are competing against is the industry. It's the market. It's what they're up against. It's, being empowered by this information. What do we do with all of this data? How do we, because it's more than just having a conversation, right? It's so much more than that. So what are your recommendations for the dealer listening to say, oh, okay, now that I know this, what do I do with it?
yeah. I always think about the annual planning process. Every business goes through this. Hey, the year's winding down. We get to September, we start thinking about next year. And oftentimes when we're thinking about investments in next year, it's that new technology, or I need valet service, or I need some other bell and whistle on my operation. That's not the answer. What our customer is telling us is that the very basics that made automotive part of the fabric of our communities is what's going to make it successful in the future as well, right? Good people helping people in their community find the right vehicle or take care of the car they currently own. Make it a great experience for me. I will always come back, so will my kids, and so on, right? So when we talk to dealers and we share this data, we generally say, look, we can bring these insights to you daily, weekly, monthly through the platform, make sense of what your customer is saying, show you where you benchmark, and therefore where you should focus. And it's that, again, it seems basic, but technology to replace people is not what our customer wants, right? Really well trained, positive, supportive staff in sales and service. That's what makes the foundation of a successful business.
It's huge. And I mean, it resonates so deeply with the mission here.
it sure does.
People.
Come on now.
Matt,
Yeah.
as we wind down, we want to thank you for joining us on Auto Collabs. How can those listening and watching get in touch with you?
Widewail.com. Come check us out. You can find us on all the socials as well, but we'd love to connect.
That's
Thanks so much for joining us.
Hold on. WIDEWAIL.com.
My man.
Not
Done.
WHIT.
Wait, stop it.
WHALE. You need to buy whitewhale.com just to mess
do.
with everyone.
Dude. Yeah.
That is a
Well,
great
man, thanks so much for
idea.
joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, guys, it's like we've been saying it. There's something about people and communication in the water. I don't know
Funny
if
thing
anybody's
about
heard this
that.
one. Yeah.
Funny thing about how that works.
Funny thing about how it works. I think for me, the most interesting thing about this is that, with all of the information that's available online right now, right? Like the myriad of articles and research places and places you can go to figure out about EVs and all this stuff. People are still craving knowledgeable, like intelligible people to interact with and ask questions and get regular communication back. Like they want that out of their dealership experience.
It's like this. Like I'm really interested in here's a kind of an adjacent thing the way I think about what Matt was saying. I'm really interested in real estate investing. I could undoubtedly find everything I need to and prompt GPT and get all the info.
Right.
And what does that mean and this and that? I still wanted to sit down with a buddy of mine who's been doing it for the last 20 years to get the ins and outs and like the gut check. That's what AI still isn't giving us. It's not giving us the gut check of like, okay, dude, but what should I do? Now that you know
Right.
where I want to go, what should I do? And it's the same thing with buying a car. Like I think sometimes we forget that this really is the second largest purchase that people make in a 3 to 5 year period of time. And they want to make sure that they're not making a mistake. And AI is not going to tell them if they're making a mistake or not.
Right.
Very true. Very true. It kind of goes back to, when we talk about social media marketing and when people just come up with their idea or strategy, especially if they're not experts, they all of a sudden overlay or they forget how they navigate social media and they forget how they consume social media. Like, well, do you actually do that? No. Let me watch you for 5 minutes.
Would you like watching
30
that?
seconds.
Would you
Would you
engage
ever watch
with that? No.
Would you
Right.
swipe
God.
like that? No, you wouldn't. And it's the same thing, I think, with this AI conversation. It's very alluring to say it's going to fix everything and we can just deploy the bots. And in reality, it's like, well, what would you rather do? It's like, I'd rather talk to a person.
That's right.
It's the same principle.
Same principle. Well, hey, look, on behalf of Paul J. Daly, Michael Cirillo, myself, Kyle Mountsier, Matt Murray, he joined us today. We really hope you enjoyed this conversation. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Share this with someone that you think might need to hear it. Smash the subscribe button. And we'll see you next time here on Auto Collabs.
Welcome to Auto Collabs.
Why are we recording?
Are we rolling yet?